This Future Construct podcast episode is supported by Applied Software. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and championing innovation with real-world expert consultants. So visit ASTI.com, it's ASTI.com, and please let them know that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future Construct podcast. I'm Amy Peck, your host. And our guest today is Joe Michaels, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at Haptex. Hi, Joe. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Hi. Good to be here.
So I have had the pleasure of actually demoing Haptex, but can you share with us what the product is and how it works and what, in fact, Haptics, which is what this is named after, actually is?
Sure. The field of haptics is a fascinating one. It's the recreation of the sense of touch where it doesn't actually exist. So most people think of haptics these days as the feedback they get from their phone screen when they're tapping the keyboard and typing a text or an email message, and you get little buzzing on your fingers to kind of signify that you came in contact with the right place. And the cool thing about haptics, the field, is it's been around since the late 1800s. People have been fascinated with recreating this sense of touch for a long time. And now the company I work for, HaptX, has been working on the most advanced form of touch feedback for VR and for robotics for the last 8 years. And we've got some really exciting products that we've announced and some really good customer momentum. So it's a very cool field to be in.
So you actually had a recent announcement about sort of your next generation glove. So it's a glove, right?
That's right. Our original vision was a full body system that could simulate the feeling of just about anything. We decided, I think wisely, to focus on the hardest part, which is the most practical part, which is haptic gloves to give you a sense of touch feedback in a virtual environment. And it took us several years to create it. And in January of this year, we announced the Haptex Gloves DK2, our first commercial product that our customers can own and wear to get realistic touch in their VR or robotic environments.
So when you think about, this sort of sensory replication, I think our first order of business was visual, right? So when we went into either augmented or virtual reality, it's like, what are we seeing? And then there's, then there was sort of audio. We were thinking, okay, what about audio? And then finally, we kind of went to haptics. Now, was that just because it's such an incredibly difficult part of the sort of technology stack and the sensory stack?
Yes, that's exactly right. It is incredibly difficult. Your skin and your nerves are extremely good at detecting BS when it comes to touch. We touch the world around us, all day, every day, and we know exactly what it feels like. So to trick it is difficult. And also it's starting, later. I mean, you've had people working in the audiovisual field for a long time. And I think haptics is really catching up. But you combine how difficult it is with the slowness of the industry, and we've got some work to do. But the good thing is, we're starting to figure it out, especially with the bringing together of technologies like game engines and the physics engines, and the excellence of the audiovisual feedback. You're able to add touch feedback now in a way that's realistic, not quite one-to-one with reality, but realistic enough to be very useful to enterprise.
And then is sort of the visual and the audio component of the haptic gloves, is that part of the kind of, I hate to use tricking of the senses because I think it's actually more than that, and it somehow sort of belittles it, but does that help the experience? So if what you're seeing and then what you're feeling are sort of, all right, now it's like then your brain relaxes and says, okay, this is actually really happening, and I actually feel this the way I'm intended to.
Absolutely, they work together to let's be clear, to trick the brain into thinking something that isn't there really is. And when you do visuals without touch, it gets you to a certain level of immersion and presence and belief. And when you add 3D audio, it extends that. And when you do touch without the visuals, that also takes away. So it's like three legs of a stool. People also talk about smell and and that kind of thing, but honestly, when you've got visuals and audio and touch working together, you can drive the vast majority of the immersion that someone needs to really have a productive use of VR.
Yeah, I mean, I get the importance of scent, but the whole sort of smellorama thing is just I'm not there yet.
No, most people aren't. And I hope they do well, as they're even further behind. So and
Yeah,
it's a tougher job because you've got to recreate a lot of smells.
yeah, indeed, indeed. So what are some of the practical use cases? So we on the program we've talked about how you can leverage AR and VR, but where are you seeing? Let's start with sort of the AEC industry, but then look kind of more broadly across enterprise. What are some of the top use cases that your customers are using haptics for?
Yeah, when I think about the general trends in the AEC industry as it relates to virtual design, I'm seeing things like the rise of standalone headsets. I'm seeing centralized kind of cloud-based data. You look at how the Wild and Iris VR, two companies kind of came together recently, I think as an indication that AEC and design are kind of getting more virtual, getting more collaborative. And generally speaking, you're seeing companies test their options, at various degrees of scale earlier in the process. And what I'm excited about when it comes to HaptX is making that kind of interaction with your designs more tactile. That's a big part of it. It's certainly not everything, but it's a big part of the effectiveness of design in the virtual space. When you think about how not everyone can read drawings, and just about anyone can appreciate like a 3D model, can appreciate the visuals out in space. But when you can touch it and move it and interact with it, you can appreciate it and understand it better. It just becomes more tangible and more real. And so I think of VR with haptics, not just HaptX, but haptics in general, as sort of the ultimate kind of design and discovery tool, so that you better understand what you want to create and what your clients really want to get out of the space. So it's very exciting, to think about wearing haptics gloves, and you could be in design mode and letting your creativity flow. And we could talk about some of the really specific things that you can do, but generally using it as a tool for design. And then when you get into the presentation mode, where you want to bring in other stakeholders and get them excited about what you've created, letting them touch and feel it, and understand it at a tactile level is really exciting and important. So that's how we're working in the design space right now, largely with automakers today, and some aerospace companies, and we're in discussions with AEC companies as well, who want to do the kinds of things I just described.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for automotive, but do you see some uptake kind of on the user journey and ergonomics reviews and things like that? Because that's where I can see, real value. Like, how does it feel to sit, in this vehicle? I mean, what does it feel like when I'm trying to, use the controls? Is that where you're seeing it, where it's sort of around user experience, or is it just enhancing the design experience itself?
Yeah, it is amazing to me how old-fashioned a lot of the design technologies are in all fields. Automotive is no exception. I mean, if you've ever seen an automotive designer work, they're making the sort of dreaming up the exterior of the car by carving wet clay. They're envisioning what the interior should look like and feel like on a blank. They call it a buck, and it could be an ergonomics buck, or it could be a design buck. It's just a blank slate, and you've got to try to mentally picture and remember what feature goes where. It's calling out all of this is calling out for virtual reality because it's so adaptable, so general purpose, so powerful, and when you make a mistake, you just hit the reset button, and also when you bring the haptics into it, it gets as tactile as you want it to be. So on the automotive side, yes, doing reach studies and ergonomic studies and just kind of understanding how these designs work, trying them from the early stages so you can avoid a lot of the physical prototyping. That's what we're seeing on the automotive side. And then when you think about AEC, I mean, some of the same kinds of principles apply. So when you're doing CAD design, in 3D, and you're bringing it into VR, so you get this spatial sense. You can get sort of spatial understanding and insight. It's exciting to be able to use your hands naturally. I sometimes joke that a mouse is great and a keyboard's great, but the best input device ever invented by God was your hands. I mean, we all know how to use your hands, our hands naturally and intuitively. So using that in the process of creativity unlocks a lot of natural goodness. And then there are some really cool ideas that we've come up with architecture firms to try to take it to the next level.
This episode of the Future Construct podcast is supported by the amazing team at Applied Software. They have solutions for any modern project. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and being the champions of innovation with their real-world expert consultants. They have a comprehensive suite of solutions for AEC, MEP, and manufacturing with a singular focus to help you achieve higher performance. So with software, training, support, consulting, and custom development, Applied Software has you covered for all of your workflow needs. BIM Designs is proud to be a client and partner of Applied Software. So visit their website at asti.com, that's ASTI.com. And don't forget to tell them that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. And it's interesting too, because I am in VR a lot, and I'm in, I have a couple headsets, and one of the headsets that I use, of course, has hand tracking, but I find I actually like to use the controllers because of the haptics and the feedback that I get with the controllers, because I'm not getting, they don't have the gloves yet. I'm sure you're talking to them and you're going to solve that problem for us. But yeah, I mean, it really makes a big difference to the experience, where I'm almost happier having a device in my hand that gives me feedback than I am using my hands with no feedback. So it is interesting how important it is, but it's so subtle. And again, when we were thinking about sort of building out experiences for this technology, haptics just wasn't that sort of, it was really the visuals that were the top priority.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you want to avoid is an uncanny valley effect. It's so disturbing when you're watching a movie or a film or just seeing images, and it's close to reality, but it's not close enough to make you comfortable. And I think the same is true when it comes to your hands in VR. It's generally the first thing people do after they look around and they're all thrilled with being in a new 3D environment. The first thing people do typically is look down. Do I have hands? Can I use them? How do they work? That's how fundamental touch is. And you're right. When you have hand tracking and all you can do is kind of wave at people and point at them, it takes you a little bit of the way, but it's almost weird. You want feedback, and the more realistic the feedback is, the better, more effective you can be in your application, no matter what it is.
And although there's a caveat to this question, is that nobody knows, but how far out are we really where we can put on a pair of gloves that just look like a pair of gloves? Like, we know that the glasses that look like these are coming. So how, do you think one's sort of driving the other, and do you feel like it's a decade out? Do you feel it's 5 years? Like where are you sort of projecting real uptake? And I think it requires a certain amount of consumer uptake, right, before it really starts to become part of our workflow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot closer than you might think. When Jake Rubin, who founded HaptX, got started, the thrill of it for him was that it seemed to the world like a 20-year problem to create a realistic sense of touch feedback. You listen to John Carmack and others, who speak about the industry, and they still think it's so far out, it's not even worth paying attention to. But what Jake Rubin at HaptX just set as his goal was to try to shrink that and make it a 5-year problem, not a 20-year problem to solve. And that was 5 to 10 years ago. And so we're now at the point where we've gotten you not one-to-one with reality, but close enough to really make you believe that you're coming in contact with objects. We call it true contact haptics. But to your question, it's only a generation or two from really creating a form factor where you can slip it on, because today it looks a little bit like a prototype, but you slip it on and it's like wearing any smooth, simple wearable, and it delivers such a premium level of feedback that that you forget it's on, and you're so immersed in the 3D environment you don't care anyway. And it takes you exactly where you need it to go. We sometimes joke, we want to stay alive till 25, because that's we think, as you said, it's about acceptance. And even if you have a demonstration of it, it takes a while to become more mainstream. And I do think by 2025, at least at the enterprise level, this will be a tool. VR with haptics will be a tool that enterprises will use regularly. We may even see a virtual first approach, the same way we've had sort of a mobile first approach in the past. A virtual first approach could very well be coming by then.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think I tried your sort of original version at least a couple of years ago now. And this new form factors is much lighter. And there were these great kind of, space age gloves. I kind of love them. But I still remember the most compelling part of that demo, was you have this little deer, right, that walks on your hands, and it's tiny and it has these spindly little legs. And I was holding my hand out, and then I could see it because I had the goggles on. And I could not believe that it was almost like these little tiny pins that I could, that needle size, but it was exactly right. And it was so compelling. And I'll never forget it. And that's 3 years ago. And so I know the new version is stronger than that. So, I think you're right. I think now, once you get to that level of fidelity, then it's just a matter of form factor, right? Making it truly wearable. But the technology is there, and that I think is what's really exciting. And so let's talk about, training. To me seems like it's an absolute, that one of the challenges that I think a lot of big enterprises have had, especially those that are doing machining or manufacturing and are trying to train on these machines, is that you have to have force feedback. Right? It's like if you're turning a wrench on something and you're just doing it and you're not getting the right feedback, it's sort of meaningless. And so what sort of advancements have you seen there? And then how are your customers sort of leveraging, again, this sort of, this sense of haptics?
Yeah. So the reason that customers and companies and industries, for generations have trained on the real equipment is to create a sense of realism, that kind of on-the-job training where you're using the real equipment and you're feeling the same forces you need to feel to really learn how to do something. And they're trying to avoid negative training. Not sure if you've heard that, I'm sure you have, being in the industry, but that's something that I'm hearing more and more as I talk to customers, is that if you train someone the wrong way, they kind of have to unlearn it later. And that's a little dangerous.
Right?
Yeah, it is. And that's, one of the great things about a controller in VR, like you said, is it's so nice to have feedback. But if you're operating your hands using pew, pew, pew triggers and buttons and that kind of thing, like it's later you're going to have to relearn how to use your hands to do these things. So that's what, is so important when it comes to training, is giving someone an accurate and realistic sense of how to do something, and then letting them practice over and over again that accuracy. So they're building muscle memory. It's all about muscle memory. When you're in a safety situation, in an emergency and you've done your training, you want your hands to fly to the right spot and behave exactly the right way. And if you avoid negative training by using realism in your training, like using HaptX or other similar devices, you achieve that. And so training people in the construction field, anyone who's operating a vehicle or equipment or tools, I mean, that's a really powerful thing because it's safer and it's more effective over the long run to use this virtual training system.
So 2025, we all have our gloves. So by then, I'm sure you're going to have the big bag prototype then for the full body suit. So we've all seen the haptic suit from Ready Player One. Is there a demand for that today, or is that a solution looking for a problem or an audience?
I would say it's a little bit early. The full body suit. It's more than enterprises need right now, and that's because it's the most important part of your body that you need to trick from a haptics perspective is your hands. And the way we're thinking about it is we're going to get very good at tactile feedback and force feedback on the hands. Then we want to expand to the upper body because you spoke before about the need as you're training to maybe turn a wrench or something like that, pull down on a control for a valve or something. And when you do that, you need to exert gross forces on the muscles and the skeleton of your upper body. And so that's something that we're excited about looking at. And we were recently funded by the National Science Foundation to look at a full body system they call ForceBot. So they're funding us to work with some universities to attack that. And in that time frame, it's a 4 or 5 year project. I do think the full body suit will become more valuable. We think about the resolution of the skin and kind of how sensitive the nerves are in each spot on your body, and they're most sensitive, of course, in your fingertips, and they're so not sensitive on your back or your legs that it becomes a whole lot easier to expand the system you develop for the hands to the rest of the body when customers say, okay, we're ready for that.
Yeah, well, you've done the heavy lifting with the hands already. So just promise me that you'll speak to some nice designers, like we'll get a Lululemon haptic bodysuit.
Oh my goodness, they
so I
would
don't
be
look like a
near the top of the list. Yeah.
I know. I'll be first in line for that.
Yeah, you could totally be the model for the suit. We'll definitely want you up front.
What just in general, I mean, even haptics aside, looking at this landscape of technology that's kind of, barreling towards us, what are some of the more compelling trends that you see for enterprises and how enterprises are really kind of creatively now using the tech? Because I think a lot of companies now are sort of just moving out of that experimentation phase. They're not quite deployed yet, but they're coming up with some very sophisticated use cases and ways to leverage this multitude of technologies. So what are some of the things that you've seen that have been really impressive to you?
Yeah, I was very inspired when I spoke to some architecture firms to get to AEC for a minute, who said, we use cardboard boxes and balsa wood and foam, to sort of create a model of what we're envisioning. And what they talked to us about was creating like a digital sandbox, to let their designers, use their hands to mold and shape what a large scale project might look like, and then to let their customers try it. And that to me was very, very cool, early step. But when I think more broadly about it, there's multi-user collaboration. That's a big area of emphasis for us, and we're just so excited about this. So what I mean by that is, in VR today, you're usually alone. When you have other people around you, typically all you can do is see one another. What we've been working really hard on is multi-user haptics. So when you're collaborating on the same designs, when you're training one another, you need to be able to touch the same objects at the same time. And that's a hard software problem to solve. So we've got the physics and the haptics working in a singular environment with multiple users. We've got that going and working well. And our customers are going crazy for it. And it's really helping me because, our customers say, now I need to buy more than one of these sets of gloves. But so how you get collaborators from around the world to, to sort of come in at the same time and all try the same designs and feel good about them. I think that's a really exciting thing that customers are doing. And then getting away from design for a minute, I would say one other Uber trend that I'm really excited about is robotics. That's something I did not expect. A year and a half, 2 years ago, we started dreaming up, could we use our product to control really not objects in VR, but objects at the other end of a robot that might be located somewhere in the distance. So if you could feel what the robot hand is feeling, what would you do with that? And fast forward, we've done some collaborations with, Shadow Robot Company and Tangible Research, and we've developed this tactile telerobot that Jeff Bezos tried, and there was a really funny image of him trying it and giving a thumbs up. And now we've got all these companies dreaming up how they would use haptics to control robots, sometimes all the way across the world. And there's military and healthcare and maintenance and repair scenarios, and even just human to avatar communication kind of robotic scenarios that it's a little mind-blowing every time we talk about it. So those are the kinds of things that really get my juices flowing.
I love that. So we can do a virtual high five, because we do that. And I tell you that the collaboration in virtual environments, I think people can't imagine what it's like if you've never been in a headset, how real it is. But we started doing at the tail end of with one of our clients, doing our meetings once a week in their virtual environment, and it was really, really effective. Not only just from a workflow standpoint, but it was so engaging that we actually started doing Friday happy hours with all of us kind of coming in, and then we'd bring much more kind of lightweight. We'd bring in 2D and 3D objects, and we'd sort of play games and we'd have fun. But it was funny, we'd all do high fives, and then you just kind of go whoop, and it's like wah wah wah, like you just kind of and I actually can't high five. It's like a weird thing. People have tried to teach me how to do it, but I always miss anyway. So it's even worse in virtual environments. So I'm very glad that you're solving that problem.
Yeah, it's amazing how simple it sounds and how hard it is to do. But once you add it, you never want to be without it again. That's something we're definitely missing in this time that we're in right now, is being in the same room with other people. And so to have telepresence and to have kind of a sense of touch in that is just a really, really exciting thing to offer. And so they're practical and just kind of more human, and emotional benefits to it.
Yeah, and I think this whole idea of remote work and being effective, but also just having your teams feel connected is a challenge in any environment. And multinational companies have offices all over the world. And to be able to be in the same environment, to see someone, to engage with them, to work together, I think it's really, it's a new day. I think it's going to really open up the way that we think about communication, and we think about work, and we think about collaboration. And I'm very glad that Haptics is kind of bringing that next level of sort of communication and connection into the realm. So I'm going to wrap up with a question that I ask everyone, which is, if you could project yourself, 20, 25 years into the future, and you could create, any gadget to bring with you that would make you happy or make your life easier, what would it be and what would it do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that I dream about is it probably is right on the line between sort of, utopic, I think might be the right word, and dystopic. It's hard to know whether to love this idea or be terrified by it. But I think it will be possible to create a machine that is effectively stationary, that lets you simulate any kind of activity. If you attach, the exoskeleton to your body in the right way, if you support the body weight in the right way, if you cover enough of the body with, the right materials, and someday, maybe 25 years from now, you can also jack directly into the brain, we expect. And you won't need to go anywhere. And that's the dystopic part. You might just, wither away, but you can experience really anything that you've dreamt of. And there's very practical stuff, like people are now talking about kind of virtual tourism. And, wouldn't you love to go swimming, in a place that you'll never be able to get to without leaving your house? Or fishing, or walking through space or something like that. And that kind of bleeds into, well, what about the things we can only dream about that aren't practical? It's not climbing Mount Everest. It's wrestling with a dragon. It's literally flying, doing Google Earth, but as if you're a bird. I mean, crazy, and then you start bleeding into, well, would you go back and forward in time and interact with, members of your family, maybe who passed away, or historical figures? And so, when you can really simulate anything, we sometimes joke in our company that, at that point, you'll be so tethered, you're untethered. In other words, you're not moving, almost at all. But if the technology is right, you feel more free than you've ever been. And that to me is a really, really exciting vision that we've all got to work toward.
That's very exciting. I like the idea of kind of being able to move forward and backward in time. And I think, we're going to hit a point in time in the next couple of generations where we will actually have a full volume of sort of 3D history of ourselves in this sort of virtual realm that can live on forever. So it's very, very exciting. A lot of philosophical concepts to unpack there. But Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for letting us have this platform to talk to you and your audience. And we'll be back anytime you need us.
That sounds great. Thanks so much. This Future Construct podcast episode is supported by Applied Software. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and championing innovation with real-world expert consultants. So visit ASTI.com, it's ASTI.com, and please let them know that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. Welcome everyone to the Future Construct podcast. I'm your host, Amy Peck. Today, I'm very excited. We have Tessa Lau, PhD and CEO and co-founder of Dusty Robotics. Welcome, Tessa.
Thank you, Amy. Happy to be here.
So I love this product. So let's dive right in. So can you just talk a little bit about your background and the beginnings of Dusty Robotics?
Sure. So I've been in robotics for about 9 years now. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and Dusty Robotics is my second robotics startup. My first robotics startup is a company called Savioke. I was the CTO and co-founder there. And Savioke built robots for the hospitality industry. So you can imagine an R2-D2 that would drive around in a hotel by itself, and it would deliver room service to guests staying in the hotels. So while I was there, we built about 75 of those robots, got them into hotels all around the world, and learned a lot about what it takes to build and scale a robotics business, and particularly how to create robots that actually do useful work for people out in the world. And so 3 years ago, I decided to branch out on my own and created this company called Dusty, that would be called Dusty. And as I was doing that, I had my background in robotics, and I knew I wanted to do something impactful and something that could change the world. And at the time, I was remodeling my house. And so I saw all of these people coming to my front door every single day with power tools on their hands and knees doing work. And I realized that construction is this industry that is so heavily dominated by skilled labor that there's got to be some opportunity for robotics in there. And so that's how Dusty was born. I decided to go into the construction industry, and the rest is history.
That's very exciting. And so you've actually raised a fair amount of capital to date. So you've had a couple of funding rounds.
Mhm.
Was it 2 million and 5 million? Am I getting that right? And so that's brought you to today, right?
Mhm.
And so, who are your ideal customers?
So the product that we're building, you can actually see it behind me. It's a robotic layout printer that we're calling a field printer. And what the field printer does is it takes BIM models. So everyone is using BIM now on their projects, right? The construction is going digital. And these BIM models, their utility kind of ends in design. They get designed out and modeled out, full detail, and then you hand it off to the field. And when you hand it off to the field, if you're lucky, you're using Plan Grid and a tablet. If you're not lucky, you've got big sheets of paper. And all of the building from then on out is all manual, it's all analog. And so what Dusty is doing is we're bridging that gap between BIM and the field. And we're taking those 3D models and we're bringing them out entirely accurately and a lot faster onto the job site so that the building work, the constructing, actually happens off of digital data. And so the customers who are excited about this right now, we are working with both the GCs and subcontractors who need to lay out their projects. Layout happens on every single phase of the project. Everything that gets installed in the building has to be laid out first. And so anyone who does any kind of interior work on a building has the need for layout. And so we're getting approached by, our biggest category of customers right now is self-performed GCs. So general contractors who self-perform some of the scopes of work. Typically the drywall scope is where we start, as well as we're working with several of the leading drywall contractors across the US to do production work on their jobs.
And so, how challenging has it been to, we hear stories about it's difficult to bring, next generation technology, onto building sites. But it sounds like you're not having that same challenge. So what do you attribute it to? Is it just the value proposition is so high and you're able to tell the story so well that, your GCs are just like, sign me up?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really what happens. So, we heard coming into this industry that construction is afraid of technology and people like to do things the same way they've always been doing it. And, they're slow to adopt, but that hasn't been the case for us at all. And I think it's because of the unique value proposition that we bring, as well as the fact that we've made our product slot directly seamlessly into the existing layout workflow. So, the value prop that we bring, everyone knows that mistakes get made during layout. It's a manual process. It's fraught with human error. And the mistakes that get made during that process can cost significant amounts of money. In fact, I just got off the phone earlier today with the president of a drywall company who said that on one of their previous projects, they had a 6-figure error that caused them to do that much rework. It was not their fault. But they ended up footing the bill. They had to patch over a bunch of junction boxes that got put in the wrong place. And that was a layout mistake. And so layout mistakes cause significant harm or cost to the industry. And if you can, once you have that coordinated BIM model, it's a natural thought to think, well, let's just take that coordinated BIM model, which everyone agrees on and is the truth, and let's bring that out digitally into the field. And so that value prop that we're bringing just resonates with so many people in the industry because everyone has a story in their past about how a layout mistake cost them money. And so we're eliminating those mistakes.
Yeah. And then, so where do you see, there's robotics, then you've got, AR, VR, you've got AI, you've got all these emerging technologies. A lot of them are more kind of software based, and then AR requires some hardware. Do you see now sort of a convergence of some of these technologies, with what you're doing? I mean, I can certainly see with what you're doing, then that becomes kind of the digital overlay, and you can essentially then, using a wearable, give everybody, with that layout, superpowers to see through walls. Yeah. So are you sort of looking at that, and are you seeing anyone deploying in that way?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's really all about bridging the gap between the digital world and the analog world and the field, right? BIM in the field. That's where we play. That's where a lot of other interest is coming from. In fact, there's a lot of interest in closing the loop and taking the information from the field and bringing it back into the digital world. And we're part of that as well. So, I think the AR and the VR solutions are really about taking the BIM model that people are investing a lot of time and effort into, and bringing that out into the field so it can be viewed, right, through maybe the HoloLens technology, or through, I've seen some tablet-based interfaces that let you hold them up and get a window into the 3D realm while you're out in the field. And all of that is just a way to take that information and get it out where people can see it and where it actually is meaningful, where it helps with the constructability and where it helps reducing the conflict and the mistakes and the rework. And so Dusty actually is just another technology that brings the BIM out into the field, except that we're doing it through relatively low-tech printer technology. I mean, it's not actually low-tech. Our robot is actually very high-tech, but the output of our robot is basically just, printed marks on the floor. And it's not like a headset or VR goggles or anything like that. But the nice thing about Dusty Layout is that you get a lot of these effects of the AR VR technology, but without needing the investment in the infrastructure, right? We come, we lay out, and we leave marks on the floor. And those marks stay, and they're visible by everyone who's walking the site. And it democratizes that BIM information so that everyone on site can see it, not just the privileged few who are lucky enough to be wearing the equipment.
This episode of the Future Construct podcast is supported by the amazing team at Applied Software. They have solutions for any modern project. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and being the champions of innovation with their real-world expert consultants. They have a comprehensive suite of solutions for AEC, MEP, and manufacturing with a singular focus to help you achieve higher performance. So with software, training, support, consulting, and custom development, Applied Software has you covered for all of your workflow needs. BIM Designs is proud to be a client and partner of Applied Software. So visit their website at asti.com, that's ASTI.com. And don't forget to tell them that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. You said something that I think is really critical, so I'd love to get a little more of your kind of take on it. And it's that it fits right into their workflow. And to me, that seems like the key to bringing in any of this new technology. And it sort of takes away that reticence to sort of try something new. And so, how did you sort of research? Did you have experience in that realm, or was it really just, looking around your house saying, look, there's got to be something better than how this is being done right now?
So that's how it started, right? There's always like the motivation for how things start. And so after I realized that construction was an interesting industry, I bought a hard hat and I bought some steel-toed boots. I didn't know anyone in the construction industry when I started. I have no experience with it. None of my family members are into construction. And so I started calling up and networking with every construction professional I could. I walked as many job sites as I could. I got lucky enough to be introduced to several project execs and project managers who are now on our advisory board. And they all taught me as much as they could about the industry. And I was just like a sponge soaking it all up. And what I did, my co-founder and I, we proposed a sequence of robotic ideas. So we started, with some crazy idea that would never fly, and iterated on that and came up with a different idea. So every time we would talk to someone new, they would have a different idea for a robot that they wanted us to build. So we collect all these ideas and we, throw out the ones that didn't make any sense, and double down a little bit into the ones that actually did make sense. And we ended up with this idea of building a Roomba for construction, like a robotic vacuum cleaner. And we ended up on that idea because on every single job site, there's always someone pushing a broom around. There's always stuff on the floor, dirt, dust, debris. And we heard that, clean job sites are safe job sites, and they're productive job sites and more efficient. And so, it seemed like a very widespread problem. So I said, okay, that's the best idea we've come up with so far. We'll build a cleaning robot. And so we need to understand what a cleaning robot would do. So we picked up some brooms and went onto a job site and started sweeping and pushing the dirt around and seeing, how big is it? How much does it weigh? What's the volume? What is the composition? And where does it go? And as we were doing that, we looked on the ground and we saw all these marks. And then we looked over to the other side and we saw people with physical paper plans and measuring tape, and we discovered layout. And then we started asking our board of advisors, okay, what if we built a robot to automate layout? Because that would be something that we could do. And their eyes lit up and they started getting really excited. And we realized that we were onto something. And so that's how we came up with this idea.
That's a great story. And it's interesting, there's some real similarities between actually the founder of BIM Designs, the sponsor of our podcast, and the Mark Oden, the founder, was just building his house and thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I think that's where some of the best ideas are born. So I'd love to kind of just, look at the landscape now. I mean, now you have much more experience within the industry. Do you see some other areas either that maybe you plan to go into, or some other ways that, just sort of trends for the future that you see, where this type of technology can continue to be valuable?
Yeah. So one of the things we're really excited about now is pushing the boundaries of layout. If you think about layout and how it's done on a job site today, and you look at what gets laid out, it's really the bare minimum. So for example, the drywall scope, the carpenters will actually lay out. In some cases, they only lay out, if they're framing out a wall, there's two sides of that wall. They'll snap a line from one side of the wall and then mark an X to indicate on which side of that line should the bottom track go. And that's just the minimum amount of layout. And that's because layout, it's time consuming, it's painful on the body. It's not a very pleasant task. You're down on your hands and knees in the dirt, snapping these dusty chalk lines that get all over your hands. And so people try to do the minimum necessary to build. And because of that, errors get made during the process. It's up for interpretation. Sometimes you might miss the X. You might put the wrong number sheets of drywall on the wall. And so all of those errors compound itself, and they result in real consequential numbers when it comes to the bottom line of the project. And so what Dusty is doing is, we see this opportunity to take layout and basically turn it on its head and say, we can do, because we have a printer, and it's not based on manual labor. It's actually automated, it's digitized, it's connected to the cloud, it's tied into your BIM model. We can take all of that information from your BIM model and bring it out onto the job site. Right now, no one is doing that. It's impossible to do that because just the technology hadn't been there until now. But once you have the ability to synchronize the BIM with the field, then it means that all of that information that is used during the design process, that's used for conflict resolution, information like part numbers, like wall types, like ceiling heights, like room numbers, all of that information can be printed in the field. And the more information you have in the field, the easier it gets to build, because people have the information they need and it's right under their boots. And so we're really excited about pushing the industry in that direction to really change how construction is done. Because I think layout right now, you can call what we're doing, I'm actually looking for a better term for it, because it goes way beyond what people think of as layout today. It's actually taking the full BIM and bringing that into the field. And that goes way beyond what people typically think of as layout.
I love that idea. And then are you looking at even just trends within the industry, not even necessarily around robotics? What are some of the things that you've seen, especially with your more, let's say, technologically advanced customers? What are some of the other ways that they're leveraging BIM and kind of digitizing it and really taking advantage of that type of data, on their job sites?
One of the things I'm really excited about right now, I'm going to give a shout out to our friends at Hypar. They're doing some really interesting stuff around generative design and essentially software defined buildings. I think I just made up that term. So I mean, if you look at the industry today, there's been a tradition of a lot of manual labor that goes into design of buildings. And as AI becomes more prevalent and as software becomes more powerful, we start seeing the ability to insert technology into different stages of the building cycle. And one of the things I'm personally most excited about is use of AI to automatically generate building designs, right? It's something that today an architect just does a lot of manual labor to come up with. And some of that, a very small amount of that work is very creative, and that will stay and that will always be there. But a large amount of that work is just very rote. It's, shifting your walls around so you have ADA compliance in your bathrooms. Well, who wants to spend their time doing that when you could be spending your time designing new, building ideas? So let's hand off the boring work to the software. And just like a robot, is doing the things that the people don't want to do. I'm really excited about the potential for software to actually impact this industry as well.
And do you view, the kind of Dusty as it's sort of a two-way kind of data stream, so that there's got to be some inferences that you're making, so you're doing this sort of next gen layout, and we'll wait for the new terminology around that, but I think you're right. But to sort of look at it from whether you put a machine learning and AI layer behind it, to start to look at we're seeing patterns here, and then these are the jobs that are more successful than others. I mean, is there going to be enough data at some point where you really are able to even help before they get to that layout stage? And are there design firms that you can see yourself collaborating with from a very early stage?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think we interface with the digital on both ends, right? There's the data that comes into Dusty, and then there's the data that Dusty produces. So on the downstream side, one of the points that our clients find a huge amount of value in is the fact that we are producing a digital record of what was laid out. And that's not something that the industry has ever had before for drywall layout, right? Those guys who are snapping lines, they don't report back which lines they snapped and where they snapped them. That would be just way too intrusive and time consuming. But our robot does. And that's one of the benefits of using robotic automation on a job. And our clients are finding that having that digital record is fantastic for them, because now suddenly they're in the digital realm, and they can go back and prove, look, I did this, right? Whereas they never had that certainty before. And so that allows them to prove that they did the work, and prove the quality and the quantity of the work that they did. So that's on the downstream side. On the upstream side, data coming into Dusty, one of the coolest things that I've seen recently is that we are starting to print curved walls. These are one of the hardest things to lay out. You have to scribe an arc if the radius is small enough that you can actually get a measuring tape the length of that arc. If that arc is large, like it's a 200-foot radius arc, then you have to do a lot of geometry in the field to calculate out how you're going to lay out that curve. And oftentimes those are intersecting curves that each have different radii of curvature. So doing that in the field, very, very time consuming, very hard, challenging for people to do, increases the cost of building because they're more challenging and harder to get right. I've heard projects where they just have to keep laying them out and building them and laying them out and building them until they get it right. And so you can imagine the cost involved in doing that for these complex buildings, and clients want them because they're sexy, they're modern, right? This is the way the world is heading. And so I'm excited about empowering architects to start designing. So once it becomes easy to build, to lay out and build these kinds of swoopy, curvy designs, right? I'm excited about what that lets architects do, because they can unleash their creativity and create a lot more interesting designs for us.
That's a great example, because there are so many buildings. In fact, there's one in Los Angeles that I can think of that is a completely round building, and it's not even that it's like super curvy. It's just round, but it's still one of the most kind of stunning buildings that sits right in the middle of Sunset Plaza. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And I think it, probably part of your success is the fact that you're actually enabling, architects to have much more creativity, because they don't have to be thinking, we'll never be able to execute on that within this budget. So we've had a guest actually, talk about that piece of it, where the budget is kind of defined in advance even of design, and you're sort of designing to the budget as opposed to coming up with this masterful design and then getting what's usually sticker shock. How do you see that sort of falling with some of your customers? I mean, do you feel like because they know they're working with you, that they're not as concerned, or do you think they're coming up with their budgets first and they know they have a set, amount that they're going to spend for a particular project, and then that sort of defines how much or how little an architect can kind of design into it?
So I'm absolutely certain that Dusty is going to take over the industry, and we're going to become the standard solution on every project. And the reason why is because we eliminate a lot of the rework costs that plague buildings. And I'm sure you've heard horror stories about projects going over time and over budget. And they're not all due to layout mistakes, but layout mistakes are a real thing, and they do happen. And they're one of those unexpected things that you can never plan for. And so we are all about decreasing the risk in a project by giving you design certainty. The thing that you design is the thing that you build. And we just heard from a project executive on one of these large jobs that we're on, that they installed the cabinets. So we're up to floor 15 on this project, and they just installed they're building out the demo units on floor 2, full fit outs interior, and the cabinets just fit perfectly the first time. They didn't have to redo anything. They didn't have to move any walls. Everything just lined up. And that certainty is what you get when you have robotic layout. And so what that means is that projects will come in under budget. They'll come in on time, because you don't make any of those mistakes that you normally do on a project. And so I'm expecting us to become the plan of record across the entire industry in a short order.
And you love what you're doing. It's so clear when you talk about, the way in which you solve this particular problem. And I think that's, I think a lot of, founders sometimes miss that, right? You found the problem and you solve it. And it's almost that simple. And you're obviously having a really good time with it.
Well, it's a lot of fun when your customers are excited about your product. It's like the best job in the world I can think of right now, because we're building something that people want, and there's nothing more exciting than that.
I love that. So let's again sort of even progress further into the future. So you become the de facto kind of layout. Do you see other products for Dusty Robotics, or do you see just a much bigger expansion of what you do now? Again, maybe around those upstream and downstream data layers.
I see both, to be honest. So I think in the medium term, I'm really excited about this idea of what we're calling enhanced layout, which is going beyond what people are traditionally laying out today. We've gotten requests to lay out anything from a kitchen to X-ray machines, and the kitchen. We ended up not doing this because of for various reasons. But imagine you're building out a commercial kitchen, and you have 3 cooks that are chefs who are going to be working in that kitchen, and they want to be able to walk the space and see, does it work for them, right? And the only way they can do that is by laying out that kitchen. Well, what if Dusty can come through and we can draw, this is the sink, this is the refrigerator, this is the stove. We can draw the controls on the stove if you want, right? We can make you a full kitchen model on the floor there, and you can walk through that space and work with your colleagues and see, does this work for you? And so that idea of being able to print things that we would just never think to lay out today is just really exciting to me. I just can't wait to see where else we can take that, because it's going to go way beyond what we're normally doing, what we normally think of as layout today.
And I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone, because you clearly think about the future a lot. So, project yourself 20, 25 years into the future, and you can have, any gadget you want that makes your life better, makes you happy, and it doesn't have to be based in reality at all. What would it be, and what would it do?
I thought about that a little bit the first time you asked me that, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Get Smart series.
Oh yeah. Agent
Classic.
99.
Yes. So I think nowadays with our open plan offices, and especially being so much on construction sites, I think the invention that I want most is a cone of silence. I would love to be able to have conversations in private, despite whatever ambient noise is out there, especially on construction sites. So I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm probably not going to be the person to invent it, but if that existed, I would buy one.
See, and that's kind of my hope with that question, is to just start putting it out there, and then some entrepreneur is going to say, oh, okay, Yeah. So that we're all, 20 years from now, we're all going to have our wishes come true because we planted the seed today. That's the goal. And, you planted the seed of this company 2 years ago and look where you are. So congratulations on all your success. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Thanks for hosting.